Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Audible.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you
Yes,
are
sir.
audible.
Good, good.
Okay, it is clearly audible, sir. And I could so see Dr. Vishwanath and Dr. Chechadi online, and their address could also be heard very properly. The sound system is also good. Thank you.
Very good afternoon, everybody. So now we are now I request all of you to go on mute.
It gives me immense pleasure for me on behalf of Chetan Business School, management, staff and all the students for hosting such a wonderful program on this Sunday evening. And at the outset, I'd like to extend my heartfelt welcome to Professor Pradeep Khandwala, the former director, IIM Ahmedabad, on behalf of all the participants, on behalf of the management and staff of Chetan Business School, and on my own behalf. So, welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And at the same time, I would like to extend my, heartfelt welcome to Dr. Chechadi, who is the mentor, Professor Emeritus of our institution, for being part of this particular program. Welcome, sir. And I also would like to extend a hearty welcome to all the participants, especially Mr. Deepak Shetty, who is participating from Mumbai, who is an IAS officer and who is in close touch with our institution. He has been participating in so many other programs, along with this kind of session that the other day has conducted on Zoom for our students. Like that, today we have eminent personalities in this particular assembly, where the people are participating from different parts of the country. So I'd like to extend a warm welcome to each one of you on behalf of Chetan Business School. In fact, as all of us are aware, since last 1 month, the whole country, the whole world is facing a lot of uncertainties. And, we are totally lost. Where particular time as an institution, as a socially responsible institution, we at Chetan Business School have started this kind of classes since last 4 weeks, where our students are enjoying the classes every day. So we all, the faculties are engaging classes from our home. In addition to that, wherever possible, we try to organize this kind of the session. And when we are requested, Professor Pradeep Khandwala, so through one of our professor, emeritus of our institution, Professor HUBLI, on his request, Professor Khandwala agreed to deliver a session today. And at the same time, when I had been to Ahmedabad, I have requested Professor Khandwala to, visit our institution for addressing our Foundation Day lecture, which was supposed to be conducted on March 19th during last month. Due to uncertain situations, we had to postpone that event. But anyway, considering our request, finally Professor accepted our invitation and he has agreed to deliver today's seminar on excellence. So this is going to be a wonderful topic, and the people across the country who are attending this particular program would have a benefit of their attending this particular program. Once again, on behalf of the institution, Chetan Business School, and on my own behalf, on behalf of the management, I extend my a warm welcome to each one of you. Now I request my colleague Professor HUBLI to give us a brief introduction about Professor Pradeep Khandwala. I'm going on mute. So as already I have given instruction, everyone should go on mute, and whenever required, we are going to have an address. Okay? So thank you.
Hello, good evening, everybody. I hope I'm audible. Okay.
Yes, sir, you are audible. Please go ahead.
A very good evening, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me an immense pleasure to introduce an eminent guest speaker for the evening, Professor Pradeep Khandwala, former director of IMA, with whom I have cherished a long association, and he has been a great mentor and inspiration to me, both professionally and personally. He is a distinguished academician known all over the world in the management circles. He has an MBA from Wharton Business School and PhD from Carnegie Mellon University, USA. During his doctoral studies, he studied under eminent teachers like Richard Syett and Herbert Simon, who was a Nobel laureate. Professor Khandwala's first book, The Design of Organizations, was prescribed textbook for MBA students in the US. His doctoral thesis was an voluminous study of around 100 American and Canadian companies. Before coming to India, he was a faculty at McGill University in Canada. He returned to India after more than a decade stay in the US and joined IIM Ahmedabad, where he went on to become Larsen & Toubro Chair Professor in OB and Director of IIM Ahmedabad. His major works in India have been on public sector enterprises, NTPC, etc. He has greatly contributed to the field of the best papers internationally. His books, research, and actions all personify excellence. He has published over 100 papers in journals and periodicals of national and international repute. He has won many accolades in India and abroad. He has received 3 Lifetime Achievement Awards. He serves on the boards of several corporations. His credentials are vouched by the presence of many distinguished guests present today online. Professor Pradeep Khandwala has a great affinity towards India and wants it to develop into a modern state and regain back its glory and become a throbbing civilization. Ladies and gentlemen, this evening's talk on management of civilizational greatness by Professor Khandwala will be a trailblazer. Over to Professor Pradeep Khandwala.
So now I request to begin with his presentation on the seminar, Managing Civilization Excellence.
So now I request Professor Pradeep Khandwala to start his delivery of address. Now
Please,
the
sir.
time of yours.
Now the time of yours.
Director Dr. Kuravi, Professor Ramakant Kulkarni, and Professor HUBBLI, for your very kind words and for arranging this address via Zoom. Professor HUBBLI we know each other for decades now, and he has been briefing me. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And
Yes, sir, you are audible.
For the wonderful initiatives that Chetan Business School has been taking from time to time. My very best wishes for its continued excellence. You know, we are going through a very grim period. There is a lockdown also, and in this brief respite from our normal activities, let us turn our thoughts to the future of our country and to our true national priorities. And this is what I would like to share with you in this talk today. You may well wonder why is a specialist in business management venturing into the uncharted arena of civilizational greatness. Let me briefly take you through my research, teaching and training journey that led me to think about this topic. My early research on the design of organizations and effective styles of management strengthened my belief that excellent management is possible not just in the business sphere, but in any sphere of life ranging from the family to the state and even society. My work on turnaround from sickness of hundreds of companies from around the globe showed that organizations that are considered terminally ill can be revitalized by dynamic, innovative management in a couple of years or less, and in many cases without drastic.
ಅವರು ಈಗ ಸ್ಪೀಕರ್ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲಲ್ಲ, ಸ್ಪೀಕರ್ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ.
Is there a problem?
Please mute yourself.
Is there a problem hearing me?
Yes, sir. Please carry on, sir.
Okay.
I request all participants to go on mute.
In many cases without drastic asset cost surgery and mass layoffs. My work on governments also indicated that what differentiates fast growth economies from slow growth economies is not the resource base of the country, but how dynamic and innovative its government is. My work on creativity at the individual, group, organizational, and society level confirmed my insight that creativity and innovation, when harnessed competently, can yield huge returns at low cost. Lastly, my work with 150 social leaders in an intensive workshop format revealed that marvelous changes can be brought about in disadvantaged communities. With all these insights in the bag, I wondered whether they could be put to use in coming up with practical suggestions for society level transformation towards greatness. The result was my 2017 book, Fast Forward Toward Civilizational Greatness, Agenda for India. The book is now available on Amazon and Kindle. Why do we need to think of designing a great civilization? Market competition, when it is based largely on greed for money, and a democratic system, when it is based largely on greed for power, often degenerate into widespread corruption and violence. The beast in man comes to the fore, sophisticated though it may be in attire and communication. Ethics often go for a toss. Look at human brutality and the canker of corruption and crime all over the world. India is no exception to this spreading scourge. As the poet William Butler Yeats put it over a century back, things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Near anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed ties is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. It would be difficult to argue that things have changed much for the better. In the modern context, to me a civilization is great, not because it is a super economic or political power, but above all if it is largely a humane, creative, and performance excellence seeking society. Humane civilization evokes in me the imagery of a people that are just, honest, fair, and tolerant. They care for the weak and the needy. They're polite, civic-minded, law-abiding, generous, and caring even for foreigners. A humane civilization nurtures and upholds the best virtues of humankind. As Gandhiji said, the greatness of humanity is not in being human, but in being humane. By a creative civilization, I mean a civilization which promotes offbeat, innovative, and constructive means for meeting human needs and problems. It encourages creativity in the arts, sciences, professions, enterprises, institutions, livelihoods, and even ideologies. By performance excellence oriented civilization, I mean one that is a norm of doing tasks well beyond the call of duty. The norm impels people to continuous learning and improvement and great satisfaction at doing a job really well. The widespread pursuit of creativity and innovation, as well as of performance excellence and humaneness, is powerfully synergistic. Widespread creativity and innovation provide a stream of novel offerings. Widespread humaneness tilts these towards benign uses. Widespread performance excellence orientation ensures high quality implementation. High quality implementation feeds back into more innovation that is socially beneficial. The result is a rising spiral of greatness in civilization. My quest has been, can we design a civilization that uses the creativity and enterprise and efficiency of the market system and the freedom to be and act of the democratic system to nourish the best in humankind rather than to activate the worst in it by pampering to the greed for power and money? I want to share some thoughts on how this may be done in the Indian context. I want to focus on how to revitalize the state, how to reorient education, how to reorient business management, how to create a more pervasive partnership between state players, civil society players, businesses, educational institutions, etc., for furthering the march towards civilizational greatness. I want to propose a national program for providing leadership and change agent training for 1 million young men and women every year that would buttress the movement towards civilizational greatness. I want to conclude by citing the example of Sweden and how its people, by the choices they made in the 20th century, overcame their relative backwardness to emerge as a shining star civilization. The state is the largest organization in most societies, including ours. We cannot progress towards civilizational greatness if the state is an ineffective one. The state is differentiated into governments at various levels. In the case of India, the federal, state, and local levels. There is also differentiation through constitutional separation of powers, as between the government, the judiciary, and the executive branches of the state. In the executive branch, there are multitudinous special purpose organizations, such as ministries, departments, sections, commissions, directorates, state-owned enterprises, constitutionally autonomous bodies, such as the Election Commission, and so forth. Is this differentiation effective? I believe there is much room for it. Exceptions apart, our governance at the central, state, and local levels is notorious for its corruption, bureaucratic rigidity, lethargy, poor implementation of policies and projects, and so forth. Are there practical ways by which governance can become much more accountable, citizen-centric, innovative, results-oriented, and effective? I believe this is quite possible and can be achieved fairly quickly. Over 50 developed and developing countries have opted for a new paradigm of governance called New Public Management, or NPM. NPM has dramatically improved governance in many countries. NPM aims at professionalizing the management of government, making it much more accountable and results-oriented, much more citizen-centric, and much more innovative. As I've indicated in my book, the kingpin of NPM is agencyfication. This involves converting government organizations into executive agencies or carving out of unwieldy departments bodies called executive agencies that are specialized in terms of their policy objectives. The distinctive feature of agencies is that they are professionally managed. Their heads are not bureaucrats, but are competitively selected professionals selected for their domain expertise, commitment, and excellent managerial skills. These agencies have charters that lay down their respective mandates and powers and responsibilities. They have operating autonomy within their mandates. In Britain, their heads are usually appointed on fixed term but renewable contracts and with a variable pay component that is tied to their performance. Typically, the CEO enters into a contract or an MOU with the parent ministry that lays down his or her deliverables and the support he or she can expect from the government. The performance of the agency is monitored by a system that periodically assesses the agency on agreed upon quantitative, qualitative, and impact targets. Often these agencies are supervised by stakeholders' boards that represent the key stakeholders of the agency. Let me give an example of how a notoriously bureaucratic department gets transformed when it is turned into an executive agency. Inland Revenues of Britain, the equivalent of our tax department, was a huge organization with some 60,000 employees. After its agencyfication, it implemented many changes. It replaced over 100 government grades by 5 broad bands. New job descriptions for its managers were made to fit its requirements. It eliminated surplus staff, but on humane terms. As many as 40,000 employees were trained to provide better services to the taxpayers. It empowered lower-level staff with greater responsibility and accountability. Enhanced the application of IT to its operations. It outsourced the staff, buildings, and equipment related to IT support to another government agency for greater IT effectiveness. It became a lot more taxpayer-oriented and changed from an investigative and giving orders mindset to one of servicing and giving support. For instance, it opened 200 taxpayers inquiry centers to help taxpayers with information and advice and increase the use of mobile inquiry centers to reach the disabled and the people living in remote locations. It publicized the taxpayers' charter that informed the taxpayers what to expect from the agency and in turn what the agency expected from the taxpayers. The charter also informed what the aggrieved citizen could do to redress a grievance. In Britain, 75% of former government servants have been transferred out to executive agencies. A review in 2002 of over 120 executive agencies operating in Britain concluded as follows. Executive agencies brought about revolutionary changes in the culture, processes, and accountabilities of those services delivered directly by central government. Agencyfication may represent the best hope of making our public administration and the implementation of developmental programs efficient, humane, and innovative. Agencyfication combined with a robust performance management system, can make a major contribution to the emergence of India as a great civilization. Our educational system is largely stuck in rote learning. Let me discuss improvements in our educational system that can foster individual creativity and striving for excellence, and also good citizenship values. Such an improvement would be both a differentiation mechanism and also an integrative mechanism. Let me give three examples of how this has been attempted in India. These examples can give us clues about how to make creativity, excellence, and humaneness widespread in our youngsters. The first is a remarkable experiment originating in Tamil Nadu called activity-based learning, or ABL. It has revolutionized primary school learning in tens of thousands of government primary schools in a number of Indian states, including, I believe, in Karnataka. ABL abjures rote learning and draws on the principles of the Montessori method of education. In this method, the responsibility for learning is that of the child, and the teacher is a facilitator. It unleashes the child's innate learning appetite and creativity and develops them further. ABL uses child-friendly educational aids to promote self-learning, and the method allows the child to study according to his or her aptitude and skill. The curriculum is divided into study cards for English, regional language, mathematics, science, and social science. When a child finishes a group of cards, he or she completes one milestone. Activities in each milestone include games, rhymes, drawing, and songs to teach a letter or a word, form a sentence, do math and science, or understand a concept. The child takes an exam card only after completing all the milestones in a subject. A baseline survey was done in Tamil Nadu in 2007-2008 to assess the effectiveness of ABL by comparing learning and outcomes before ABL was adopted and a year later. The average achievement of children increased significantly in all the subjects. The average achievement of children increased. The gaps in achievement between the two genders, male and female, between children living in urban areas versus rural areas, as well as well-to-do versus poor localities, and social groups such as higher versus lower castes were narrowed down. Compared to before introducing ABL, the children asked many more questions, and instead of sitting in parallel rows, they were usually found sitting and interacting in circles. The ABL pedagogy of self-learning can be extended both with suitable modifications to the full spectrum of education in India, including higher education. The result could be more creativity and self-learning ability and a higher appetite for excellence. The second example I want to give is that of EduCom, an educational enterprise operating from Delhi and started by Shantanu Prakash, an alumnus of IMA. It has been able to deliver multimedia and education digitally to over 12 million children in over 25,000 government as well as private schools classrooms. This program is delivered via the internet with audio-visual aids and animation. The content is in English as well as in India's regional languages. EduCom has developed a digital library of thousands of multimedia modules for assisting teachers. Multimedia education has several features: audiovisual aids, animation, additional learning facilities, interactive facility and two-way communication with the students, questions to probe comprehension by the students, and assistance to teachers to make learning truly exciting. Such education offers much hope for bypassing decades of pathetic schooling and alongside the computer and telecom revolutions. It can provide deeper learning and creativity, enhancing education at relatively low cost to practically all the school children of India. How do we make our youth more humane? How do we inculcate good citizenship values in students? Lok Bharati, a Gandhian institution of post-school learning in Gujarat, provides some insights. Its mission has been to demonstrate how higher education can contribute in practical ways to tackling the problems of rural India. Community life at Lok Bharati lays emphasis on co-education, physical labor, and cooperation. The institution teaches subjects like economics, science, philosophy, and politics, but as anchors for practical living. It lays stress on values and character building, the dignity of labor, and the application of higher knowledge to solve the problems that beset poor people, especially the rural poor. For instance, knowledge acquired through studies is applied by the students to alleviate suffering during famines, floods, earthquakes, communal riots, and so forth. Lok Bharati is committed to holistic development. For instance, every student must study both the sciences and the humanities. The idea is to fuse technical expertise with wisdom and compassion. Second, the practical use of knowledge is strongly emphasized. As an example, students studying chemistry may go to a village, analyze the water from its wells to identify impurities, and counsel the local people on how to solve the problems created by the impurities. Lok Bharati has adopted several dozen villages. Annually, in one of these villages, a 10-day camp is organized to get the students to understand the pulse of an Indian village and its problems, strengths, and weaknesses. Every Thursday, students and teachers go to selected villages to work with families to improve their quality of life. At Lok Bharati, community life in the form of dorm is considered an integral part of the syllabus. It is regarded as the most effective way of developing a balanced, multi-sided, and noble personality and good citizenship. Self-reliance and goodness are inculcated in students through them preparing and serving food, cleaning up vessels and latrines, elimination of caste and gender inequality, evening get-togethers, and so forth. If we use the pedagogy of Lok Bharati widely in our colleges, especially have the collegians work in rural areas for a month or two, require of them some physical labor, and blend arts and humanities courses in technology and science curricula, and vice versa, India can experience a surge in high quality, socially relevant, character building higher education. Let me share some ideas on how business can contribute to civilization greatness. Research indicates that corporate goodness pays. A number of studies in the West have tried to find out whether corporate social responsibility spending is linked to business performance. In the majority of the studies, a positive link was found. In a recent study of nearly 400 American banks, the banks that were active in CSR outperformed those whose CSR was below par. In another American study of 650 companies, increased CSR spending was associated with subsequent improvement in business performance, thus suggesting a causal link from CSR to business performance. Other studies have shown that at least in the West, both prospective job seekers and prospective customers prefer a strong CSR company to one with a bad record. And increasingly, mutual funds use a CSR and ethics screen to screen out investments in bad companies. Such investments may have crossed the $2 trillion mark by now. Such a screen can buoy the market valuations of decent companies. A further interesting finding is that CSR reduces the financial risk of the company, thus elevating the price earnings multiple of the company, thus benefiting its shareholders. If you put all the research findings together, decent companies are likely to have more loyal customers and employees, better profitability, and higher price earnings ratios. Goodness pays handsomely even in India. Just look at the market valuation of decent companies like Infosys, Wipro, Tata Steel, L&T, TCS, and Aditya Birla Group companies, all attempting to work profitably and innovate, but also decently and do their bit for society. The model that I have outlined in the book is the following. Corporate commitment to goodness eliminates some of the unsavory options available to the company and thus threatens its profitability. This may motivate management to wide search for innovative and ethical alternatives to current options, processes, outputs, and activities. If it does, what has been taken for granted so far, policies, business strategy, products and services, technology, organizational structure and management systems, corporate values and culture, and so forth, gets actively questioned. This search yields profitable options and innovations that can strengthen both the top and bottom lines. If these options are effectively implemented, the corporation strengthens its top and bottom lines. This in turn strengthens the corporation's commitment to decent conduct because such conduct is experienced to be in its self-interest. If such conduct becomes widespread in business, it can help create a humane business that promotes strong, caring, and inclusive economic growth. This, therefore, is a new paradigm of management that needs to be propagated. This does not require business persons to become saints or Gandhians. Gandhism requires a level of ethical and spiritual human excellence that may be beyond the capacity of most business persons. But enlightened self-interest is not beyond the capacity. After all, many entrepreneurs have turned to professional management because they have found it to be in their self-interest. If they understand that corporate goodness contributes to excellent long-term corporate business performance, then a large number of business persons could be swayed away from dishonesty, exploitation, and corruption to ethics, corporate social responsibility, values, and democratic functioning. Corporate conduct could get closer to what Gandhiji had in mind when he advocated business trusteeship. Complex large systems need to be integrated effectively. In our context of vast needs and scarce resources and managerial talent, effective integration of efforts by stakeholders to achieve public purpose is vitally important. Government, business, and the civil society are the most dynamic institutions of our society. For advancing towards Civilizational Greatness. My book considers that alignment of purpose and partnership indispensable. It lays special emphasis on this partnership in the execution of the government's numerous public welfare and developmental programs. It argues that generally speaking, the government has resources and public interest at heart, but poor implementation capability. Business has resources, innovation, and professional management, but often falls short on a sense of social responsibility. Excellent NGOs have idealism and commitment, but often lack sufficient resources. Such NGOs also have a deep understanding of ground realities. Higher institutions of learning have research-based expertise, but lack a good understanding of ground realities. If all of these are yoked together for public purpose, they can complement each other to produce a powerfully effective execution capability, which can rapidly advance a nation like India towards civilizational greatness. The book provides many examples of such partnerships and outlines numerous areas where it can be very productive. Let me give one example of the high potential such a partnership holds. There are some 250,000 villages, many in tribal areas and drought-prone areas, that are more or less wholly dependent on vagrant monsoon rains. In recent years, in years of poor rainfall, there is much misery, and around 1 lakh indebted farmers are known to have committed suicide in the past decade because they could not repay debts and feed their families. These 250,000 villages have between them nearly 40% of the arable land of India, and the well-being of some 200 million people is at stake. A number of NGOs are active in water management in India, and they have intimate understanding of ground realities. These include Aquadam, AKRSPI, Dhan Foundation, Sadhguru Foundation, Tarun Bharat San, Tilonia, Vasan, Pani Foundation, etc. They found that participatory water management in rural areas gives good results. For instance, AKRSPI is an NGO that has developed ways of mobilizing the participation of rural people in managing newly created infrastructure. AKRSPI not only hires local persons and trains them to mobilize people, but also gets government funding for needed infrastructure. The result is that the check dams, bore wells, tube wells, etc. have been created to provide water security with the combined initiative of the government, AKRSPI, and participative management organizations set up by the locals with the NGO support. There is a dramatic increase in production of crops and incomes. If in a partnership mode, the government were to assign, say, 15,000 rain-fed villages for 5 years to each well-performing NGO with expertise in water management, pay the costs of the needed structure, bore wells, check dams, support, provide the needed electricity and other infrastructure, and the costs of hiring a large number of mobilizers who can each mobilize, say, 30 villages over the 5-year period to go in for participatory water management and partner with these NGOs to create water security on agreed upon timelines and performance indicators, then the job of providing water security to these 250,000 villages could be done in 5 years. These NGOs, being familiar with traditional water conservation systems, there are 20 such systems, may be able to come up with better context-specific solutions. If instead the government were to go it alone and let bureaucrats manage the entire water security system, the chances are that it may be decades before the job is completed, possibly quite poorly, and that too at a horrendous cost overrun. That is not all. with the detailed hydrological, topography related, water purity, sociological and other necessary studies for each region can be passed out to scientific establishments such as the Indian Institute of Technology, Indian Space Research Organization, Indian Institute of Science, TISS, and so forth. The studies could be done rapidly and effectively if the IIMs are roped in to provide management expertise, and if the business sector is roped in to funnel CSR funds to this mission, and also commercially participate in providing infrastructure, etc. Some 200 million people could nearly double annual income within a year or two of their getting water security. And what is more, they would have stable incomes, and India's food production could go up by a third. My book has a suggestion for building a greater Indian civilization through a powerfully integrated mechanism, an annual one-year immersion program for 1 million carefully selected young men and women, say between the ages of 18 and 21, can strengthen a pan-India identity. This would happen by mingling youngsters from all parts of India and from all communities and castes. Such a program would include a 3-month stint with NGOs involved in constructive work to turn these youngsters into effective change agents. Also some self-defense training, plus remedial education for identified weaknesses, and training in yoga, meditation, livelihood earning occupations, and brainstorming for creative solutions could be included. Modules of the way the country is governed, its problems and priorities, and how they are being tackled, and community level issues should be included. Also, exposure to role models of humane and innovative excellence, career counseling, and what it is to be a good citizen and family member would also be included. At the end of the year, at the end of 1 year period, each participant would have acquired at least one livelihood-related certified competence and reasonable competence in Hindi and English. By using the pedagogy of activity-based learning, the learning ability and creativity can be enhanced. Multimedia, digital distance education technology can bring the best teachers to these youths. Their contact with the poor and the disadvantaged, as in Lok Bharati, would spur their humaneness. Each participating youngster would get a stipend of rupees 1,000 per month, plus free boarding and lodging and other amenities. The recurring cost would be about rupees 20,000 crores a year, barely 1% of Government of India's annual revenues. But think of the return: 5 million potential social change agents and upright and innovative citizens in just 5 years. The return in terms of our youth's excellence would be huge and could yield a greater civilization. To keep unwarranted political and bureaucratic influence at bay, I recommend that the whole program is managed by an autonomous, empowered authority with a council of experts and a CEO who is competitively selected, highly competent, and has a solid anchoring in training and development of youth. India has the potential to become, once again, a great civilization. That is, a civilization in which there is widespread humaneness, creativity and innovation, and performance excellence. In my book, I have presented a number of ideas how we can move along this path. In this talk, I have sketched out a few. Ultimately, it is we the people, through the major institutions of our society, such as the state, business, the media, associations, academic institutions, and other civil society bodies, who have to decide what path our nation should take. If we take the right steps, our journey will be highly productive. If we take the wrong steps, this journey could become extremely tortuous. In this connection, I am reminded of the example of Sweden. At the end of the 19th century, Sweden was a relatively poor country, and there was significant migration out of Sweden. It was quite behind France, Germany, and Britain in industrial development. But the Swedish people, through their elected representatives and through their business, education, and other institutions, took a number of steps that transformed Sweden into one of the relatively laudable civilizations on the planet. Consider the civilizational milestones Sweden has passed. Around 30 Nobel Prizes, over 3 times more on a per capita basis than the United States. On the Innovation Union scoreboard for 2011, Sweden was ranked as the leading EU nation out of 27 countries. In the INSEAD Global Innovation Index for 2011, Sweden was ranked second. The World Economic Forum's Global Competitiveness Report 2011-12 put Sweden into the 3rd place. This index measures the institutions, policies, and factors that set the stage for sustainable economic prosperity. Longevity in Sweden is over 80, and Sweden has among the world's highest scores on the quality of life indicators. Sweden is amongst the most egalitarian of societies, with the 3rd lowest Gini coefficient, which is a measure of economic inequality. It is much lower than that of the US. World Bank-based research on governance systems of over 150 countries indicates that on the criteria of government effectiveness, Sweden was rated one of the highest, as also on rule of law and control of corruption. On Transparency International's Corruption Perceptions Index, Sweden consistently ranks as one of the least corrupt. It gives 1% of its GDP in foreign aid, that is over $4 billion. This exceeds the UN's target of giving 0.7% of GDP in foreign aid. Nearly a fifth goes to promoting democracy, human rights, equality, sustainable development, and environmental protection. Swedish fiction is widely translated. Between 2006 and 2016, more than 3,300 titles translated into 50 other languages. What makes Sweden such a remarkable civilization? Early in the last century, Sweden opted for democracy and a market economy when there was pressure for aping the Soviets. Sweden has chosen to develop one of the most comprehensive welfare states in the world. It provides financial security to all citizens. Through its welfare state, Sweden provides a platform for the widespread rise of what Abraham Maslow called higher order needs or self-actualization needs. These include the need to excel in one's calling and the need to be creative and the urge to be humane. Sweden's entire population has equal access to public health care. The healthcare system is publicly funded and run and funded by the county councils. Education is mandatory for all children between the ages of 7 and 16. From the age of 1, children can be admitted to preschool. Preschools provide an environment that stimulates children's development and learning and enables parents to combine parenthood with work or studies. This pedagogy is continued in compulsory schools. Sweden has evolved a distinctive system for maintaining industrial peace and harmony. Agreements between employers and trade unions are generally worked out by negotiation. A labor court made up of 3 impartial members and 5 representing employers, workers, and salaried employees has jurisdiction over the application, interpretation, and enforcement of collective agreements. Industrial peace has generally prevailed since the end of the 1930s. Swedish law requires employee representation on boards of directors of companies. Such cooperation facilitates widespread innovations and changes. The media are able to access information through one of the most robust freedom of information statutes. An informant can choose to remain anonymous to what represents, and employers are legally prohibited from investigating the source of information. Social movements, such as for sustainable development, have been strong. Sweden has opted for large-scale agencyfication of the government, which I had referred to earlier. Sweden has secured more efficient public administration by adopting agencyfication. For instance, the number of government decisions has been cut by a factor of 4 since the 1960s by delegating decision-making authority to the agency level. The choices that Swedish people have made has led to Sweden becoming an affluent country of 10 million with a per capita income in PP in purchasing power parity terms of $47,000, only about 10% less than that of the US and higher than that of Britain, France, and Germany. Sweden is not perfect. There are still blemishes, such as high divorce rate and a relatively high suicide rate. Nor is it an economic or political superpower, but it stands tall as a role model civilization. We need not imitate Sweden, but we need to make choices appropriate to our context and aspirations that move us faster towards civilizational excellence. I have outlined in my book several such choices, but more needs to be enumerated and discussed. We need to take the conversation in the country beyond the growth rate of the economy, the fiscal deficit, the current accounts deficit, quality of life indicators, and India's permanent membership of the Security Council to how to foster greater humaneness, creativity and innovation, and performance excellence. Let me conclude with a poem by Tagore that captures the essence of a great civilization. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. Thank you all.
So, thank you, Professor. It was a mind-blowing session, and I hope it was a very, very value-added session for all the participants of this particular meeting. Now, the time is open. People who want to make interaction with the professor, you kindly raise your hands as you have an icon in the screen so that we have to know who should be allowed to have interaction. We'll be able to take few questions. Now it's a session for question. I think Professor Manik was raising the hand. So anybody would like to interact? Professor Manik, do you have any question?
Professor, Dr. Vishwanath,
Yes, sir.
could I ask?
Yeah. Professor Chechdi, can have interaction. Can I ask a question?
Dr. Khandwala, it was an expedition on humane society, and I think you summed it up very well by saying greatness is not in human, but it is in humane. But varying intentions of people in building organizations come in the way of building humane organizations, because it assumes, human organization assumes that all interested persons have one common goal of developing the organization. Under these circumstances, how do we try to build a culture that is more amenable to building a humane organization? I hope I am clear.
Yeah, Professor Khandwala.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello.
You're talking of organizations, and there are many examples of organizations. People do have different goals and values, even in organizations.
Yeah.
But they still can be made to accept one overriding goal, what we call superordinate goal.
Yeah.
And that superordinate goal, whether it is an organization or a family or a community or a society, can pull people together.
Yeah.
Pursue our self-interest, we pursue our individual interests, and yet we are able to contribute to that goal. The Gandhian movement is one example of that. The movement of the blacks in America under Martin Luther King is another example. And we can think of many other examples of movements. Right now, in this very situation of COVID-19, the whole nation is under lockdown simply because the Prime Minister announced it. We are all into it. There are exceptions. There will be some aberrations. But you can see that in spite of our differences, in spite of our different goals and needs and so on, we are united into one goal, that we want to defeat this coronavirus. So it is possible. And this is what leadership is all about. What is the leader's role? It is not to give particular tasks. That's the manager's job.
Yeah.
The leader's role is to excite people with that superordinate goal, with those transcendental values that unite people into a higher task, into a higher endeavor. And that is what leadership is all about.
Yeah. But Professor Khandwala, how do we build such leadership in people? Because we find a dearth of leadership today everywhere, in education, in government, in every other place. There aren't very many people who are very strong in their or have clarity in their approach and are able to give dynamic leadership profile. So under these circumstances, how do we fill the gap? And in the absence of strong leaders, how do we bring the superordinate goals into existence?
The point is very well taken. It is not an easy task at all, obviously. But it is not an impossible task, because it's been done before. It has been done in our own country before.
Yes.
Under Gandhi, it was done.
Yeah.
A whole lot of people, millions of people are brought together. So it can be done. See, the point is this: because of the systems we have created, democracy and the market economy, and both of these are necessary systems. I do believe they are very essential for our society. But they have also based on greed for power and greed for money. Now, when these get out of hand, then you got mayhem. Then you got all kinds of problems. It's like COVID-19 has entered politics and entered economics. So now there's no simple solution. We have to disaggregate the problem. How do you improve education? How do you improve government? How do we improve the business sector? How do we improve the NGO sector? How do we have better community management? So I think one approach would be to, in a sense, create individual focus areas and work on them. The second one is to create, if I may say so, a network of concerned people, just as we have today, right now. You know, there are plenty of very good people in this country. Good thinkers, good people at heart, but they're scattered. They do not have, they are not linked together. If we can somehow manage to link them together, we can, I'll give you an example of how we try to do in a very small way. 4 or 5 years back, I was asked to mentor a group of social leaders. And we had a number of workshops. And these are people who are heads of NGOs, who are heads of CSR departments, heads of funding agencies and so on. And the idea was that over a period of maybe 5 years, 10 years, we could create a community of 1,000 people who had gone through these workshops. There were 4 workshops a year of 2 days each for each batch of 20. And we went through, I mentored several of these. And the idea was that you create a network of people who support each other. Because they are decent people, they care for society. If I have a problem with a collector or some politician, I'm alone right now. But if I've got 900 other people I can turn to, I can then fight back. I can find ways of solving the problem. So I think another way of doing this is to create a network of decent people. It's not impossible. It's difficult. It can be done.
True. Thank you, sir.
It can be done locally, then regionally, then nationally.
Thank you, sir.
May I, sir? Professor Parveen, can I?
Advocate Khatib wanted to interact. So,
Yes, sir. I am available. Yes, sir.
Please. Go ahead,
Yes,
Advocate.
sir. Thank you very much, Professor Saab, for your thoughtful insight. See, there are 2 or 3 things that have come to my mind after I heard you. Sir, firstly, we are going to have a very serious impact on the socio-politic and economic sector, especially informal sector. So what would be your tips to help the informal sector to come out of this huge blow, completely unexpected, that has fallen now upon them? I wish to seek your thoughtful insight on this, sir.
I really am no expert on how to tackle coronavirus. This is something that experts have to tell us. But one thought that comes to my mind is this, that if we can have very extensive testing of people, we can then allow people who are tested and tested positive, negative, to be able to work normally. And so the informal sector can resume work, provided the people in the informal sector are tested, and then those who are negative can be allowed to work together outside. This is one way. The other, of course, is to give money and food and so on. So these are 2 ways by which we can tide over the next 2-3 months of this terrible situation. But it is a frightening, you're talking about livelihood, which may be managed. I'm more concerned about deaths. When you think of Dharavi, with 1 million people in the Dharavi slum, there are probably, 30-40 million people all over India living in slum or slum-like situations. How are you going to prevent the outbreak of coronavirus there? Feeding can be done. You can give them food. There's 60 million tons of food grains lying in our stocks, and that can be provided. It's difficult, but it can be done. But how are you going to provide? Social distance is not possible in the slums. So that's I think, a very major question. And I really have no answer to that. The best thing is if we can somehow manage to get a medicine, some kind of thing to prevent the virus, that is the best course of action. The faster we can do that, the better. Otherwise, I see no easy way out.
Yes, thank you, Professor. Anybody else would like to ask a question? Professor Patil, would you like to ask the question? Yeah, please.
Sir, may I continue? There was a part and it went on mute.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Sir, my question to the Honorable Speaker was that, see, we are having a pandemic now. That is one thing on the health aspect and the medical aspect. My question was that what would be the best ways to support the informal sector in this scenario when it has had a very serious hit from a pandemic? So on the economic and financial aspect was my question, sir.
I really have no great answers to give because it is partly a medical problem and partly an administrative problem. How do you reach these people and what do you do? I mean, in this circumstances, when there is a lockdown, you are able to buy only groceries and medicines right now. I'm not able to travel outside. My society is locked up. So in the circumstances, the government is the only body that can do something. Civil society cannot do anything. Even if you put, even if you want to help, I can't go out and help. I'm stuck. So I think we just have to hope that the government will find a way by which to, in a sense, test a lot of people who are, and if they're okay, they should be allowed to work. The other solution is what the Prime Minister has talked about, other people have talked about, that those who are working and are negative can stay where they are working, not go home. Okay, so there is no contamination. In a factory, for example, if the factory is employing 50 people, all those 50 people who are, if they are not positive, they can stay there, they can be fed there, they can work, they can produce, but they don't go home until there's 2-3 weeks or 5 weeks or 10 weeks are over. But there are no easy solutions, my friend, right now. I think solutions will emerge in due course, but right now I can't think of anything quickly.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Sir, can I? Hello.
Go ahead, Patil. Go ahead, Patil.
Sir. In the process, I got disconnected. Sorry for that. Sir, I would like to hear from you. In the process of building a culture, what is the role of Benalo Meadows limits to growth?
I'm not sure there are limits to growth. There are limits to greed, but not growth. Human creativity is so enormous that what we have to limit is our greed, of wanting more and more and more. But growth in terms of psychological growth, social growth, spiritual growth, there are no limits.
Yeah.
Why don't we focus on those things?
Yes.
The only thing of more cars, more goods and services and so on. Yes, we need to have enough. But growth has many dimensions. And I think we need to focus on these.
Thank you, sir. Very nice input.
Now it's a time for Dr. Arifa Makandar.
Hello, good evening, sir. Hello.
Hello, yeah.
Good evening, sir. Sir, my question, in fact, concern is because of this pandemic COVID-19, everywhere there is a negativity, the morale of the people, especially the young generation, is very low. So my question is, what role we educationists can play to boost that morale and face this challenge? We all know it will pass, but right now we all are going through very challenging times. So what role we can play so that we can spread the positivity in the society and face the challenge with positivity? We can boost the morale of this young generation.
Yes, I'm not sure I got the answer to that, but I think this distance communication offers us enormous opportunity. We, fortunately, practically everybody in the country now has a mobile. So it's not difficult to reach people. instead of chatting, usual stuff, can we begin to, for example, read good stories, positive stories, share good experiences, good works that people have done, get youngsters to voice their concerns, try to answer their anxieties, time to build up their character, time to build up, instead of focusing so much on just learning, which is okay, part of syllabus and all that, but also to look at the other vital part of character building, personality development, which can partially be done through distance learning. I think we can use creatively distance learning to reach our youngsters and influence them to become better citizens, better thinkers, more creative people. We can teach them techniques of creativity on the through distance learning. We can expose them to wonderful stories that would excite them. These are ways by which we can perhaps remoralize.
So virtually, we have to get connected, though there are distances between us. Virtually, we have to be connected, keep sharing positivities.
Luckily, connection is there. Connectivity is there. Contact is not there. Personal contact is not there. But connectivity is there. So let's use it.
That's right. So we have to make use of it very positively. Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Arifa. I hope Professor Solapur has a question. Yeah, please, sir, go ahead. Speak up, sir.
Sir, can I?
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Professor. And you mentioned that 1 year internship program for youngsters.
Yeah.
That is in the age group of 18 to 20 will make more revolutionary measures for greater civilization.
Yes.
Sir, whether it is applicable for all the institute to make this mandate?
No, it's not an institute level thing. It's a country level thing. The country as a whole has to do this. No institute can train 1 million people. This has to be, it's a national enterprise. Nation as a whole. We have NCC and all of these things are there. But they're very limited. This one is where people live together. Of course, not obviously all million can't live together. They'll be spread over. But nonetheless, it's an intensive living in 1 year period in which they get all kinds of inputs, character building inputs, making them more creative, more innovative, more altruistic, more concerned, better citizens, and also give them one specialization of some kind, which will get them a job or get them something to earn with when they finish this program. So this is a national level thing. But it has to be managed not by a bureaucrat, it has to be managed by a visionary.
Whether is there any measures taken by the government of India or other state government for promoting this scheme, sir?
No. But I am hoping that through our conversations, we will become more aware of the need for such a program. When we go back to countries like during the wartime, there used to be this 1 or 2 year period in which people of 18 or so they were recruited into service. And they were taught military training and all that. But in the process, they were also given some other inputs and they became upright people. I'm going much further beyond that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kashiraman. I hope Professor M.R. Solapur has a question. I'll unmute, Professor, you can speak up. I'll unmute you. So please speak up.
He has to unmute.
Hello.
Yeah, now speak up, Professor.
Thank you, sir, very much for your insightful presentation.
Thank you.
I have 2 questions. Question number 1, how do you position India as a civilization in socio-economic spheres today? Question number 2, how is ABL a very effective pedagogical tool? So given the diversity of the students in terms of their ability to learn and motivation to learn. Over to you, sir.
We have rankings of quality of life indicators of countries. World Bank and other bodies have done that. And India doesn't figure in the top ranks at all. It's somewhere in the middle. It's not one of those countries which we can say boastfully that we are the top. So I would say that India is still quite mediocre in terms of our ranking on these indicators. My worry is not so much the rankings now. My worry is the drift of where we are going. We are a poor country. We have been a developing country. So inevitably, we will not be at the top ranks right now. Obviously, we can't be with Britain and France and Germany in quality of life indicators. That's not the point. The point is, what is the slope? Are we going down or are we going up? And it is this rate of change, the first derivative, if you like, in mathematics, that I'm more concerned about. Are we going up or down? And I'm not sure that we are going up. When I look at, I'm 80 now, and I grew up during Gandhian times broadly, just the aftermath of that. When I look at the level of ethics in society, and when I look at the level of ethics today, our economy is incomparably bigger than it's 5 to 10 times bigger than what it was in those times. But are our ethics 5 times bigger? Is our sense of citizenship 5 times better? That is the problem. That is the problem I want to address. That yes, growth is good. We all need to grow, obviously. Economic growth is vital. We have to pull out people from poverty. But there's no problem in growth itself. But growth for what? How do we achieve that growth? And what do we put the growth to? What use do we put the growth to? If we remain pretty ordinary as people, quite uncaring, selfish, aggressive, not very nice towards each other, then that growth, America is vastly richer, but you see what state America is in. 30,000 people are shot by a gun every year there. They either shoot themselves or they shoot other people. Is that the kind of society we want to be? There is rampant violence there. There is rampant drug addiction there. Is that the kind of society? So this is my concern. We must grow. Economic growth is vital. But we must also grow in terms of our quality as human beings. And that is where I feel that when I talk about innovativeness, creativity, humaneness, and performance excellence, if we can build that into our society.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
That is.
Thank you, Dr. Solapur. So now I'll take a question from Nivedita. Nivedita.
Yeah, sir, I'm there. Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I have one question here. Now, when we come to a working profession, so what happens is the word we say civilized, it means it's more of getting modernized in Indian context. But what would you suggest so that even we also grow, but also balance the ethics? Because somewhere when we are working in the professional life, they get compromised, but it should not happen. So what are your suggestions, or how can we balance the civilization towards ethics?
That's what I talked about, my friend.
Yes, sir.
What, 45 minutes.
It was.
So, look, it's this. In life, we have to make a choice at some point between getting higher income through a profession and sticking to some ethics. Doctors, for example, they have this Hippocratic oath under which they put life before money, right?
Yeah.
You know that so many doctors don't do that.
Yes.
Okay. Now this is where the choice comes. Do you abide by that oath to your profession, or do you care so much for money that you're willing to compromise? That's a personal choice. And so, my sense is, and I know many professions who have been quite decent and yet have grown professionally.
Yes.
I also know many professions who have grown indecently. And I think it's a choice that you have to make as a, just be damn good as a professional and stay away from unethical practices. The growth may be a little slow initially, but once you become a brand and people see you as a good, decent professional, there will be no end to your growth.
Okay.
I've seen that with doctors.
Yeah.
One of a doctor, my family doctor, is a decent person. He charges very low amount for poor people. But if you go to his clinic, there's a whole line of people waiting outside. So I think these are the choices we have to make in life.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Nivedita. We take a last question from Mr. Mohan. Mr. Mohan has a question. Yes, go ahead.
Yes. Are you hearing me, sir?
Yeah.
Are you hearing me? I am Rao.
I'm hearing you, but I can't see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, sir.
Yeah. Good evening to all.
Mohan,
Yeah.
please hold on. Mr. Rao is speaking from Pondicherry.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Speak up, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm able to hear you.
Okay. Thanks very much for your nice talk, sir. I have one question. When medical education is privatized and when to get actually to doctor's degree, one has to spend lakhs. And how can he become actually ethical in his practice?
First of all, I think that as like in Sweden, higher education should be free.
Yes, sir. I agree with that, sir. But the privatization has gone so much.
You know, but that's where I feel that nationally we must make that commitment to funding higher education so that there is not this temptation to, in a sense, recoup your expenditure through unethical means when you actually become a doctor or a professional.
Similarly, sir, management institution take pride, that my student gets or my graduate top institutions. Developing actually materialistic youth today.
That's the problem. No? If we at IME, for example, I was director of IME, and at that time we took a lot of pride that our students were getting top salaries, in lakhs and lakhs. That is a very wrong way of judging the quality of an institution. My own way of judging an institution, management institution, is not what salaries I get. Yes, decent salaries, obviously. But what does a person do when he gets a job? Is he a change agent? Does he show leadership skills? Does he do something that helps the organization? Is he a good citizen? Is he a person who cares for customers? Is he a person who cares for other stakeholders of that organization? If he or she exhibits these characteristics, then to me that is much more valuable than is getting, let's say, 10 lakhs a month.
True, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Rao. Now the last question from Mr. Mohan.
My question, my understanding is like some of the education systems of Israel. If we take some of the education systems from the Israel, probably it may give some answers for our.
Mr. Mohan Kumar, will you please repeat your sentence? If you take some.
Yeah.
for higher education and some mandatory courses that is required for a lot of changes required in the future for our young generation. Probably we may have to take some of the and pick some of the practices which are done in Israel. I feel that's what I just wanted to communicate here.
I'm not very aware of practices in Israel. Maybe you can inform me about that. What are the practices that you would
Yes. In terms of the quality, yes, quality is there in our Indian context, yes. But meantime, some of the things like military system or for example, every student has to undergo a military training in their country. Where not only they learn new things about the protection of the country or system and security, everything, they also learn a lot of cultural things, which will, I mean, civilization, how to protect the civilization, how to go about the future of their country. They learn a lot of things over there. So some of the things, if we pick from there, probably in Indian context, maybe some of the areas we can improve our education systems, I feel.
No,
this is what my...
I think whatever Israel has done, which is constructive in their context, you can look at that and adapt it to our situation. The problem is that Israel is a country of 3 or 4 million people, and we are a country of 1,300 million people. And so if you're talking of compulsory military training, you have to talk in terms of training 10 million or 15 million people. So anyway, there are these issues of scale, but nonetheless, the point is well taken. That's why I was suggesting in my talk that we should have a national program of taking 1 million youngsters after the school and giving them that wide-ranging exposure, including some military training, to make them much better citizens.
Yes, sir.
Much better human beings.
Yes.
Thank you, Mohan, for your question. Now, it's a time to propose the vote of thanks. I request Director Dr. Ramakant Kulkarni, Director Academics of our institution, to propose the vote of thanks.
Good evening to all of you. Sir, last 1.5 hours, it was mind-boggling when the scholarly discourse that he gave to that lecture, and true to the subject, civilization and excellence. The Guru Shishya Parampara is very much visible when Professor Uri asked you to speak to us today, and that is the bond which we see. Indeed, on behalf of all of us, we are profusely indebted to you. Thank you so much. And the audience profile is so diverse and so nice. There are academicians, there are top-ranking bureaucrats, then there are entrepreneurs, there are consultants, and there are other practitioners, advocates, and all this community. I think almost we touched about 82 people during the course of this last 90 minutes. We are all benefited by your lecture. And one request, if this lecture is shareable, you can please send it by email to Professor HUBBALLI so that we can share it depending upon its shareability or otherwise. But then definitely, yes, we are benefited by this, and we do look forward to such interactions. My profuse thanks to you once again. I thank all the participants for sparing this time and being Sunday. But then two things are possible. One, the technology has enabled us to go pan-India. There were people from Delhi, there were people from Mumbai, there were people from Pune, Pondicherry, Dharawat, of course, yes, and Belgaum, and so many other places which I may not be able to make out now. But technology has enabled one, and the iconic status that you have got in the academic circle has brought so many people together. I think last 90 minutes must be a very great value addition for all of us. Look forward to you. Again, thanks to all of you. Thanks to my colleague, Professor HUBBALLI, for taking this initiative, talking to you, and getting to on the line today. My director, Dr. Vishwanath, for you met you a couple of months back. Then also we have requested you
somehow that could come to then today. It did happen. He also pursued the matter. All my colleagues for last 1 week who have been working on this, to reach out to the people and try to get them to this line. There are some very senior professors are here who have taught us, like Professor Dixit, well wishes like my own colleague Deepak Shetty, other classmates, PS Nakshati, and whole host of things. Once again, it was a very well spent time, I think, and I thank all of you. Not to forget, during this crisis hours, a couple of people who are relentlessly working for our betterment, the police, the paramilitary, the paramedical, doctors, nurses, all the government machinery, which is trying to make us our life as far as possible corona free. A big salute to all of them on everybody's behalf. Thank you so much to all of you. I think Jai Hind, and we do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all the participants and Professor Pradeep Khandwala on this occasion. And I request once again all to follow the guidelines given by the government. Stay home, stay safe, and keep on attending such sessions to enlarge the knowledge horizon of all of us. Thank you everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It was a wonderful session. Different insights.
Can we log off now?
Yes, sir.
Dr. Kuravi, can we log off now?
All of you can log out.
Congratulations, Korvi sir, Ramakant sir. Hearty congratulations to you for organizing this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
We look forward to have
Pradeep is there, you can thank even him also.
Yeah, Pradeep, thank you very much. And we look forward to have many more such sessions to come from you. Thank you very much. Ramakant sir, personally,
Pradeep
thanks to
Khandwala a very happy and long life.
Yeah.
We want him a healthy life.
Yeah, sir. Pradeep sir, I have
we want
read
the
your...
service to go a long way in the development of the country. And when the country is passing through such a difficult time, so elderly person's guidance like him is very, very essential to the country.
Pradeep sir, I have read your article on internet. It is there available on net. A great article. Thank you very much for your valuable inputs today. Great to see you. Thank you very much. I am glad to see CC Dikshit ji on the panel. Sir, namaste.
So I'd like to thank all the participants, Deepak Shetty from Mumbai, Dr. Chechidi, Professor R.R. Kulkarni, Director of KIMS, Dr. Manik, Director of GS, Dr. Havangi, Director of IBMR, Dr. R.L. Hyderabad, my teacher, and Professor in the Department of Commerce, Professor M.R. Solapur, former Director of Siddhaganga Institute of Management, Tumkur, Dr. A.R. Vadakkanur, Principal of Chetan College of Commerce, Hubli, Sharad Gupta from Delhi, C.A. Gudi from Mumbai, Dr. Prashant Yadgiri from Tapmi Institute, Manipal, Dr. Savita Kulkarni, and Uday Lavati, former Director of GBS, Ramanayak, and Dr. Pangi. So many more people who have participated, more than 85 people participated in today's event. So once again, I thank each one of you for your cooperation. So again, I put on notes my sincere thanks to Professor Pradeep Khandwala. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.